My husband quit his job to find himself while I was 8 months pregnant, spent our baby fund on a gaming PC and streaming equipment. Now he's mad I won't support his content creator journey while working 2 jobs. My husband just called me financially abusive because I refused to pay for his 4th ring light this month while I'm working overnight shifts at the hospital and weekend shifts at Target to keep our lights on. He quit his job 3 weeks before our daughter was born. Just walked in one Tuesday afternoon, sat down at our kitchen table, and said, "I need to find my passion before I become a dad." I was folding baby clothes with my feet so swollen I couldn't wear shoes. I asked him what he meant and he said his job as an insurance claims adjuster was killing his soul, and he needed to invest in himself. I thought he meant he'd take a week off, maybe see a therapist. He meant he'd liquidate our entire baby fund. $8,000 we'd saved over 2 years. Gone in 3 days on a gaming PC, a professional microphone setup, a green screen, and something he kept calling essential streaming infrastructure. Our daughter is 4 months old now. He streams for maybe 6 hours total per week. His channel has 23 subscribers and half of them are his old college friends who never watch. Last week his longest stream was 2 hours and he made $3 in donations. He spent $40 on takeout that same day because content creators need fuel. I'm getting maybe 4 hours of sleep a night between feeding the baby and working doubles. He sleeps until noon because he was up late networking with other streamers. Yesterday I came home from a 12-hour shift at the hospital to find him screaming at his monitor because someone beat him in a video game. Our daughter was crying in her crib. He said he didn't hear her because his headphones have studio quality noise cancellation. I snapped. I told him I was done supporting his delusion and he needed to get a real job. He said I was trying to crush his dreams. I said his dreams don't pay for diapers. He said, "You just don't understand the content creator journey," and pulled up a YouTube video of some guy talking about how it takes time to build an audience. That's when I told him I'd opened a separate bank account and he wouldn't have access to my paychecks anymore. He'd have to ask me for money and show me what it was for. He completely lost it. Started yelling that I was controlling and abusive. Said I was weaponizing finances and treating him like a child. I said maybe he should stop acting like one. He grabbed his phone and posted in some streaming Discord about how his unsupportive partner was sabotaging his career. Within an hour I had his online friends messaging me calling me toxic and saying I should be grateful he's pursuing his passion. His mother called me yesterday. He told her I cut him off financially and was forcing him to give up his dreams. She said I was being too harsh and that young parents need to support each other's goals. I asked her if she'd pay our rent then. She said that wasn't the point. I asked her what was the point. She hung up on me. Last night he told me he'd signed us up for a loan to buy better equipment. $5,000. Said it was an investment in our future, and the interest rate was very reasonable. I told him absolutely not. He said I'd already destroyed his confidence and now I was destroying his chance at success. I'm sitting here feeding our daughter at 3 a.m. after working a double shift and I can hear him in the other room yelling at his screen about how this game is trash. My body aches everywhere. I haven't had a full night of sleep in months. We have $340 in our checking account and rent is due in a week. His friends keep messaging me. One of them said, "Some people aren't meant to be supportive partners." Another one said I should be proud he's chasing his dreams instead of settling for mediocrity. They're all college kids living with their parents. Am I wrong for cutting him off? Everyone's acting like I'm the villain here. I left him alone with our daughter for 3 hours yesterday and came home to find her screaming in a full diaper while he was on his 3rd energy drink recording a reaction video to some gaming drama. The apartment smelled like she'd been sitting in it for hours. I didn't yell. I just picked her up, changed her, fed her, and put her down. Then I packed a bag and told him I was staying at my friend's place for a few days. He barely looked up from editing his footage. Said, "Okay, whatever," like I told him I was going to the grocery store. That was 5 days ago. He's called me twice. Both times to ask where I keep the baby's medicine because she was making weird noises. I walked him through checking her temperature over the phone while she screamed in the background. He hadn't fed her in 6 hours because he thought she wasn't hungry since she didn't cry. She's 4 months old. She can't tell time. His mother showed up at my friend's apartment yesterday morning. Don't know how she got the address. She started crying the second I opened the door, saying I was tearing her family apart and her son was devastated. I asked if she'd seen her granddaughter lately. She said she'd stopped by 2 days ago and everything seemed fine. I asked if fine meant a baby in the same onesie for 3 days straight sitting in a playpen surrounded by empty monster cans. She got quiet. Then she tried a different angle. Said her son was going through a difficult transition and I needed to be more patient. That he'd supported me through my pregnancy so now it was my turn to support his dreams. I told her he supported me by complaining I was too tired for intimacy and spending our hospital fund on RGB keyboard lights. She said I was being cruel and marriages take work. I asked her flat out if she'd help with bills. She said she's on a fixed income. I said then maybe she should stop giving advice about situations she won't help fix. She called me disrespectful and left. My supervisor pulled me aside at the hospital yesterday. Said I looked exhausted and was making small mistakes. Nothing dangerous but enough that she noticed. Asked if everything was okay at home. I started crying right there in the supply room. Told her everything. She didn't say much, just listened, then told me about the hospital's emergency assistance program for employees in crisis. I didn't even know we had one. I called my husband last night to check on the baby. He answered on speaker and I could hear his game in the background. I asked how she was doing. He said fine. I asked when he'd last changed her. He said he thought maybe around lunch. It was 9 p.m. I asked what he'd been doing all day. He said he'd had a really good streaming session and was up to 31 subscribers now. 8 whole new people in 5 days. I told him I wanted to talk about next steps. He said he already knew what I was going to say and he'd been thinking too. Got real quiet. Then he said he'd been talking to his streaming friends and they all agreed I was showing classic signs of postpartum depression, and that's why I was being so irrational and unsupportive. Said I should see a therapist. I almost laughed. I asked him if he seriously just armchair diagnosed me with postpartum depression to avoid admitting he quit his job to play video games. He said it wasn't just video games, it was content creation, and I clearly didn't understand mental health. I asked him which of his streaming friends had medical degrees. He said I was being defensive, which proved his point. That's when he dropped it. Said he'd been documenting everything. Every time I'd said something controlling or unsupportive. Screenshots of my texts, recordings of our arguments. He was building a case that I was unstable in case we ended up in court over custody. Said he'd do whatever it takes to protect his daughter from my toxic behavior. I hung up, sat there shaking for 20 minutes. Then I called my friend who's a family lawyer. She asked me a bunch of questions. How often is he alone with the baby? Does he have income? Can he prove stable housing? Does he have any evidence of me being unfit besides being tired and refusing to fund his hobby? She told me to document everything too. Take photos, save texts, keep a log of every time I have to walk him through basic childcare over the phone. She said his plan would fall apart the second any judge asked him to show proof of income or questioned why a content creator making $3 a week needs primary custody of an infant. I went back to the apartment this morning while he was asleep. The place was trashed, dishes piled up, laundry everywhere. Our daughter was asleep in her crib wearing a onesie I don't recognize, probably one he found in the diaper bag because he hasn't done laundry. I packed up all her stuff, my clothes, important documents. Took photos of everything. He woke up when I was loading my car. Came outside in his boxers and started yelling about how I can't just take his daughter. I told him she's our daughter and I'm the only one acting like a parent. He said he'd call the police. I said go ahead. I'd love to explain to them why there's moldy bottles in the sink and an empty fridge. He went back inside. I'm at my friend's place now with everything we need. My daughter is clean, fed, and sleeping peacefully for the first time in a week. I blocked his mother, blocked most of his friends who wouldn't stop messaging me. But I keep thinking about what he said about the custody thing. About him documenting everything to make me look unstable. And I'm terrified because I'm not unstable, I'm exhausted. But what if a judge can't tell the difference? What if working 2 jobs to keep us afloat somehow makes me look like the bad parent compared to him being home all day even though he's not actually parenting? Am I making this worse by leaving? Should I have stayed and tried to work it out? His streaming setup is getting repossessed tomorrow and he's threatening to sue me for sabotage. I didn't do anything. He missed 3 payments on that loan he took out without telling me. The one for $5,000 he swore had very reasonable interest rates. Turns out reasonable meant 28% and he'd been making minimum payments with money his mother was sending him. She stopped 2 weeks ago after I sent her screenshots of him asking me to pay for DoorDash while our daughter needed formula. The finance company called him yesterday morning. I know because he immediately called me screaming that this was my fault for abandoning him and cutting off his income stream. I asked what income stream. He said if I hadn't left he could have focused on building his channel instead of having to stress about basic survival. I reminded him I was working 16-hour days while he played video games. He hung up on me. Then his friends started. Not just messages this time. One of them posted in some streaming community forum about how his toxic ex was destroying his career and anyone who supported her was just as bad. Used my first name, said I was trying to baby trap him and when that didn't work I weaponized our child to control him. Within an hour I had messages from complete strangers calling me every name you can think of. My lawyer friend told me to document all of it. Said it was harassment and possibly defamation. I took screenshots of everything. 73 messages in 2 days from accounts I've never seen before. Some of them got really dark. Talking about how women like me are why men kill themselves. How I deserve to lose custody. One person said they hoped someone taught me a lesson. I filed a police report. The officer seemed skeptical at first, like I was overreacting. Then I showed him the messages. He got quiet, asked if I felt safe. I said I didn't know. He said he'd file it but there wasn't much they could do unless someone made a direct threat. I asked what counted as direct. He said they basically have to say exactly what they're going to do to me. Everything else is just online talk. My husband showed up at the hospital 3 days ago. I was in the middle of a shift. Security called me down to the lobby. He was there with his mother, both of them demanding to see the baby. I said she was with a sitter. He said I was keeping his daughter from him. I said he knew where we were staying, he could arrange visitation like a normal person. His mother started crying in the middle of the lobby, talking loud about grandparents' rights and how I was alienating their family. Security escorted them out. My supervisor saw the whole thing, pulled me into her office after and asked if I needed to take leave. I said I couldn't afford it. She said the hospital could work something out. I started crying again. I'm so tired of crying. The sitter quit yesterday. Said she couldn't handle the stress after my husband showed up at her apartment looking for the baby. She'd posted a photo of my daughter on her personal social media and he must have recognized her. He didn't do anything, just knocked and asked to see his daughter. But it scared her enough that she told me she couldn't watch her anymore. I don't blame her. My friend whose apartment we're staying in is getting nervous too. Her landlord saw my husband sitting in his car outside for 3 hours last week. She's worried about getting in trouble for having long-term guests. I told her I'd figure something out, but I don't know what. Every apartment I can afford has a 2-month waiting list, and I don't have first, last, and deposit saved up. I had to take my daughter to my shift at Target yesterday because I had no other option. My manager let me keep her in the break room. One of my coworkers stayed with her during my register time. I could hear her crying through the door during my entire shift. A customer complained that there was a baby in the store making noise. My manager defended me, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. I'm running out of options, and I think he knows it. His mother called me yesterday from a number I didn't recognize. Said she'd spoken to a lawyer. Said I had no legal right to keep her son from his child, and if I didn't arrange regular visitation immediately, they'd file for emergency custody. I said file whatever you want. She said I was being stupid and stubborn. That her son made mistakes, but he was still a father, and I was punishing their whole family because I couldn't handle him following his dreams. I asked her if she'd called to help or just to threaten me. She said she was trying to help me see reason before this got ugly. I said it was already ugly. She said I hadn't seen ugly yet. Then she tried being nice. Said she knew I was struggling. That being a new mother was hard. That maybe I wasn't thinking clearly because of stress and exhaustion. She could help me if I just came home and worked things out with her son. They'd help with the baby. I could rest. We could be a family again. I asked her what coming home looked like. She got quiet. Then she said obviously I'd need to be more supportive. Let him pursue his content creation. Stop being so controlling about money. I asked if that meant funding his hobby while working 2 jobs. She said it wasn't a hobby, it was a career investment. I hung up. My lawyer friend called this morning. Said she'd gotten a letter from an attorney representing him. It was a formal demand for a visitation schedule and a threat to pursue custody modification if I didn't comply within 10 days. The letter said I was engaging in parental alienation and denying him access to his child without cause. Said he was a devoted father being kept from his daughter by a vindictive ex who couldn't accept his career choices. She said the letter was mostly posturing, but I needed to take it seriously. We set up a consultation for next week. She warned me this was going to get expensive. I told her I didn't have expensive. She said she'd work something out. I pulled my daughter's medical records yesterday. Every appointment, every checkup, every vaccination. I scheduled them all. I took her to every single one. There's not one record with his name on it. Not as emergency contact. Not as someone who was present. Nothing. I have every receipt for diapers, formula, clothes, medicine. All purchased with my money. My credit card. My account. I have the timestamps on the photos I took the day I packed up and left. The dirty bottles. The overflowing trash. The unwashed clothes. I have the call logs showing every time I had to walk him through basic childcare because he didn't know when she last ate. But I keep thinking about what his mother said. About how I haven't seen ugly yet. And I'm scared because I'm barely surviving as it is. I can't afford a custody battle. I can't afford to miss work for court dates. I can't afford anything. The repossession guy is supposed to come tomorrow between noon and 4. He's been posting about it constantly. About how the system is rigged against small creators. How big corporations crush people trying to build something. His follower count actually went up. He's at 47 now. He hasn't asked about our daughter once in 6 days. Am I wrong for not trying harder to work this out? Everyone keeps saying parents should co-parent and put their kid first, but how do I co-parent with someone who doesn't actually parent? Child Protective Services showed up at my friend's apartment yesterday because he called them and said I was living in unsafe conditions with our daughter and showing signs of mental instability. The caseworker was kind but thorough. Checked the apartment, looked at my daughter, asked about my work schedule, my support system, my mental health. I showed her everything. The clean space my friend gave us. My daughter's feeding schedule. Her medical records. The documentation my lawyer told me to keep. She asked why we weren't living at home. I told her everything. Showed her the photos from when I left. The messages from his friends. The police report about the harassment. She took notes on everything. Asked if I had concerns about his ability to care for our daughter alone. I told her about the 6-hour diaper. The phone calls where I had to explain how to prepare formula. She wrote it all down. Before she left, she said the complaint seemed retaliatory rather than based in genuine concern. That she'd be doing a home visit with him as well and would compare her findings. She said to keep doing what I was doing. That my daughter looked healthy and well cared for. But she also said to expect him to use this in court. That false CPS reports always look bad, but sometimes they work because they create a paper trail that the other parent can twist. I called my lawyer right after. She was furious. Said filing a false CPS report could actually hurt him, but we needed to be prepared for him to claim he filed it out of genuine concern. She asked if I was ready for this to get worse before it got better. I said it can't get worse. She said it always can. He posted about the CPS visit on his streaming channel. Didn't say he called them. Just said CPS had shown up at his daughter's location, and he was extremely concerned about what that meant. Said he was a father fighting for his rights against a system designed to favor mothers. His follower count jumped to 73. People were commenting about how brave he was. How they'd been through similar situations. How the courts always side with vindictive exes. One of his new followers sent me a message. Said she was a family law attorney who'd handled hundreds of custody cases, and based on what she saw on his channel, I was clearly trying to alienate him from his child. That men like him get destroyed by the system every day. That I should be ashamed. I looked at her profile. She wasn't a lawyer. She was 19 and lived 3 states away. The repossession happened on schedule. He live-streamed the whole thing, crying, talking about how this was the death of his dreams. How the system punishes people for trying to be different. The chat was full of people telling him to start a fund to buy new equipment. By the end of the stream he'd made $47 in donations. He immediately ordered pizza. His mother called me that night from her own phone this time. Said I should be happy now that I'd destroyed everything he worked for. I said he destroyed it himself by taking out loans he couldn't pay. She said if I'd been a supportive wife none of this would have happened. He would have had time to build his channel properly. Would have had the emotional stability to succeed. This was all my fault. I asked her when she'd last asked about her granddaughter. She went quiet. Then she said of course she cared about the baby but right now her son needed her support because his whole life was falling apart. I said his life was falling apart because he chose video games over his family. She said I was poisoned and hung up. My friend sat me down 2 days ago. Said her landlord had given her a formal warning about unauthorized long-term guests. That she wanted to help but couldn't risk losing her apartment. I told her I understood. Started looking at shelters that accept mothers with infants. Found 2 with availability. Both have waiting lists. Then my supervisor called. Said she'd been thinking about my situation. That her mother owned a rental property and the tenant had just moved out. Small 1-bedroom, nothing fancy, but available immediately and she could work with me on deposit. Below market rate. I started crying on the phone. Again, she said to come look at it tomorrow. The apartment is tiny. Old carpet. Kitchen barely fits 1 person. But it's clean and it's safe and the bedroom has space for a crib. I can afford it if I keep both jobs. Barely. My supervisor's mother said she remembered being a single mother. That she'd make it work with me on payments if I was ever short. I signed the lease the same day. I moved in yesterday. My friend helped me carry our stuff. It's not much. Clothes. Baby supplies. An air mattress until I can afford a real bed. But it's ours. Nobody can show up unexpectedly. Nobody can threaten to call the landlord. For the first time in weeks I feel like I can breathe. I was feeding my daughter on the floor last night when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Did anyway. It was the caseworker. She'd completed the home visit with him. Said she needed to ask me some follow-up questions. Her voice sounded different. More formal. She asked if he'd ever been alone with our daughter for extended periods before I left. I said yes, a few times. She asked if I'd ever had concerns during those times. I told her about coming home to find her crying in dirty diapers. About him not knowing her feeding schedule. She asked if I'd ever reported these concerns. I said no, I didn't think it was reportable. I just thought he was learning. She said she couldn't tell me details about his home visit but that she had significant concerns about his current living situation and his understanding of infant care needs. That she'd be recommending supervised visitation only until he completed a parenting course and demonstrated stable housing and income. That her report would be available to family court if custody became an issue. I asked what she saw. She said she couldn't discuss it. Then she paused. Said off the record, as a mother herself, that I should document absolutely everything and get a formal custody order as soon as possible. That sometimes people surprise you with how far they'll go when they're desperate. He knows about the apartment. Don't know how. Maybe he followed me. Maybe someone told him. He showed up this morning. Started pounding on the door at 6 a.m. Yelling that I couldn't keep his daughter from him. That he had rights. That he was going to call the police and report a kidnapping. I called the police first. Told them my child's father was at my door making threats and I had a CPS report documenting concerns about his care. They sent someone. The officer talked to him outside for 20 minutes. Then knocked and asked to speak to me. Asked if there was a custody order. I said not yet. He said legally he couldn't stop the father from seeing his child without a court order but he could ask him to leave the property. That I should file for emergency custody Monday morning first thing. My husband was sitting in his car when the officer left. Just sitting there, staring at my building. He stayed for 4 hours. Finally left around noon. My lawyer friend called me this afternoon. Said she'd heard from his attorney again. They're filing for joint custody with him as primary residential parent. Claiming I abandoned the marital home with the child. That I'm alienating him from his daughter. That I'm unstable and unable to provide a safe home environment. They're requesting an immediate hearing. She said we need to file our own motion first. Requesting sole legal and physical custody with supervised visitation. That we have the better case with the CPS report and the documentation but we need to move fast. That filing fees plus her time is going to cost around $3,000 to start. She'll work with me on payment but I need at least $1,000 up front. I have $412 in my account. Rent is paid but that's it. I get paid from the hospital in 5 days. Target in 3. Neither check will be enough. I'm sitting here at midnight trying to figure out how to come up with money I don't have for a custody battle I can't afford against someone with apparently unlimited time to make my life hell. My daughter is sleeping in her crib. The only furniture in this apartment besides my air mattress and a folding chair someone gave me. His latest stream from tonight is titled, Fighting for My Rights as a Father. He's up to 92 followers now. The court hearing was 3 weeks ago. I'm still processing everything that happened. I scraped together the $1,000 for my lawyer by selling everything I could. My laptop, some jewelry my grandmother left me. A coworker heard what was happening and just handed me $200 cash in the break room. Said she'd been through something similar and couldn't stand by and watch. I cried in the bathroom for 15 minutes after. We filed for emergency custody the Monday after he showed up at my apartment. My lawyer submitted everything. The photos, the CPS report, the message logs, his own social media posts where he talked more about his streaming equipment than his daughter. The medical records showing I'd handled every appointment alone. His attorney filed a counter motion the same day. Claimed I'd abandoned the marital home with no warning. That I was keeping his daughter from him out of spite. That he was a devoted father being systematically erased from his child's life. They submitted screenshots of his streaming channel as evidence of his stable income source and community support system. The judge assigned us a court date 2 weeks out. Ordered temporary supervised visitation in the meantime at a family center. 2 hours every Saturday. He'd have to pay the supervision fee himself. $35 per session. He showed up to the first visit 17 minutes late. I was sitting in the waiting room with our daughter when he walked in. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing the same gaming hoodie he'd worn for a week straight before I left. He wouldn't look at me. Just signed in and went to the visitation room. The supervisor told me after that he'd spent most of the 2 hours on his phone. Our daughter started fussing and he tried to give her a bottle. Had to ask the supervisor how to warm it up. The supervisor said she had concerns about his ability to recognize basic infant cues but that she'd document everything in her report. He didn't show up to the second visit. Didn't call, didn't text, just never appeared. I sat there for 45 minutes before the supervisor said we could leave. She said no shows get documented too. His attorney called my lawyer that week. Said he wanted to negotiate. That court was expensive and stressful for everyone. That maybe we could work something out. My lawyer asked what they were proposing. They wanted joint legal custody with a gradual transition to overnight visits. No child support because of his temporary financial situation. I'd be responsible for all childcare costs and medical expenses. My lawyer told them absolutely not. Said we'd see them in court. The hearing was on a Wednesday morning. I had to call in sick to both jobs. Lost 2 days of pay I couldn't afford to lose. Wore the only professional clothes I owned. My lawyer met me outside the courtroom. Told me to stay calm no matter what they said. That the judge would see through it. He showed up with his mother. Both dressed nicely. Looking put together. His attorney was older, experienced, the kind that charges $300 an hour. No idea how he afforded it. Later found out his mother took out a loan against her house. We went in. The judge was a woman in her 50s. She read through everything before we even started. The whole file. Took 20 minutes. Nobody spoke. Just waited while she read page after page. Then she started asking questions. Asked him about his employment status. He said he was building a content creation business. She asked how much income he generated. He said he was in the growth phase. She asked for a number. He said around $200 over 4 months. She wrote something down. She asked about the CPS report. He said I'd created unsafe conditions to make him look bad. The judge read the caseworker's notes out loud. About his apartment, the empty fridge, his inability to answer basic questions about infant care, his claim that babies pretty much sleep all the time anyway. He started to interrupt. She told him to be quiet. She asked about the supervised visits. He said the supervisor was biased against fathers. She pulled out the supervision reports. Read about him being late. Being on his phone. The no-show. Asked if he had an explanation. He said he'd been dealing with a lot of stress. That losing his equipment had been traumatic. That he was struggling with his mental health because I'd destroyed his dreams. The judge looked at him for a long time. Then she asked if he'd sought treatment for his mental health concerns. He said no. She asked why not. He said he couldn't afford it because I'd cut him off financially. She turned to me, asked about my work situation. I told her about both jobs. The hours. The childcare arrangements. She asked how I was managing. I said barely, but I was managing. She asked if I'd missed any of our daughter's medical appointments. I said no. Every single one was documented. She nodded. She asked if I was willing to allow visitation. I said yes. Supervised until he completed a parenting course and demonstrated stable housing and income. His attorney objected. Said I was being unreasonable. The judge told him she'd decide what was reasonable. Then she asked him directly. Asked if he understood why there were concerns about his ability to care for an infant independently. He said no. Said he was being discriminated against. That society doesn't take fathers seriously. That the whole system was designed to favor mothers. She asked if he'd taken any parenting classes. He said he didn't need classes. That parenting was instinctive. She asked about the 6-hour diaper incident. He said that was an exaggeration. That I was making him sound worse than he was. She read the CPS notes again. About him saying he thought babies could hold it longer than that. He went quiet. The judge took a 15-minute recess. Came back with her decision typed up. Sole legal and physical custody to me. Supervised visitation only. Once per week for 2 hours. He had to complete a court-ordered parenting course within 90 days. Had to demonstrate stable employment and housing. Had to pay child support starting immediately. Amount calculated based on his earning potential as someone with a college degree, not his actual income. $340 per month. His attorney tried to argue. The judge said her decision was final. That she'd seen enough cases like this to know the difference between a struggling parent and someone refusing to grow up. That content creation was fine as a hobby but not as an excuse to abandon parental responsibilities. That his daughter deserved a father who prioritized her needs over his wants. He started crying. Actual tears. Talking about how unfair this was. How he tried his best. How nobody understood how hard it was to build something from nothing. His mother was crying too. Reaching for him across the courtroom divider. The judge told him he could appeal if he wanted. But that any judge would see the same evidence and likely reach the same conclusion. That he needed to decide whether he wanted to be a father or a full-time gamer. That he couldn't be both right now. Not with an infant who needed actual care. We left the courtroom. His mother followed me into the hallway. Started yelling that I'd ruined her son's life. That he'd never recover from this. That I was a vindictive witch who wanted to destroy their family. Security had to escort her out. My lawyer hugged me in the parking lot. Said this was the best possible outcome. That it almost never goes this well. That most judges split custody regardless of the evidence. I sat in my car for an hour before I could drive. He didn't show up to the first court-ordered visit. Or the second. Missed 4 in a row. The court sent him a warning. He posted about it online. About how the system was forcing him to pay for supervision he couldn't afford while simultaneously demanding he pay child support he didn't have. His follower count is up to 137 now. His mother calls once a week. Leaves voicemails about how I'm keeping her granddaughter from her. How she has rights too. My lawyer sent her a letter explaining that grandparent visitation requires the custodial parent's permission in this state. She hasn't called in 2 weeks. The first child support payment never came. My lawyer filed for contempt. They'll garnish his unemployment now. $34 every 2 weeks. Not even close to what the order says, but it's something. I dropped down to 1 job last month. Just the hospital. My supervisor helped me switch to a schedule that works with daycare hours. I'm still exhausted all the time, but I can actually sleep sometimes now. My daughter is 7 months old. She's hitting all her milestones. She's healthy and happy and has no idea how close we came to losing everything. I saw him once last week. At the grocery store. He was with some girl. Young, maybe 20, wearing a gaming jersey. They were buying energy drinks and frozen pizzas. He saw me, looked away fast, kept walking. I don't hate him. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being scared. Tired of wondering if I made the right choices or if I should have tried harder or been more patient or been less controlling like everyone said. But then I look at my daughter. At her smile. At the way she lights up when I come home. At how safe she is now. How stable our tiny apartment feels. And I know I did the only thing I could do. He still streams sometimes. Posted last week about the grind never stops and building an empire from nothing. Someone in the comments asked about his kid. He said it was complicated. That his ex made it impossible for him to be involved. That the system was broken. 143 people believe him. But one judge didn't, and that's the only person who mattered.